president even said that, you know, that if there was genocide, the minister would not have said that. But for me, I drew those lessons that you need to have allies, you need to know your opponent, because going there just to prove a point that I can speak back to Trump, I can match the energy, right? Sometimes it's not good, even for your own people. But the current politics in South Africa at the back of the Freedom Charter. So the Freedom Charter is a document that was adopted in 1955 in Cape Town as a vision for the future of South Africa. So the context of it was that Black people were stripped of their rights. They couldn't vote for the majority. Their land was taken. So they were basically treated subhuman. And so the people gathered, led by the ANC, to say, let us have a vision of the future. So that's what the Freedom Charter is about. But I think this moment in South Africa calls for a different or a new leadership caliber with new solutions, who are not scared to say, we want to disrupt the system. Because I think for me, that's what I want to do.
Mujapilo no JP Forest phakathi kwequantum sirenga wonke umzansi boy isukile boy.
Let's go right to the sound of good times.
Another day, another dollar, another episode, another podcast, another opportunity to inspire and transform lives. Eitahola Shapfere, welcome to another exciting episode of the Quantum Podcast. I-podcast yasekasi, i-podcast yomphakathi, i-podcast yabantu, i-podcast yomhlaba wonke jikelele. Bafethu, I believe by now you already know igama Kemsnash. Sintwana 1632 the number 1 Mageza the number 1 Mtraiseni wasekasi. So bafethu, as always, niyacava bafethu. Ku-passenger city akenzeki ngivaye ngi-1 yabo. So but before ngi-introduce lo sisi omuhle engivaya naye namhlanje bafethu, let me remind you ukuthi sikuphi. We are coming to you live from eHigher Food for Life eThembisa e1632. So bafethu, njengoba ngishilo ukuthi angivaya ngi-1, so fandahi ngiphethe uNtsaphokazi. So ladies and gentlemen, let us put our hands together for uNtsaphokazi. Siswa munjani? I'm okay. Relax. Ukhonta, betekusini kumnansi yarasa. Yabo, so ungakhulumi ngase office yabo. Siyacula kumnandi yabo. So, welcome to Quantum Podcast.
Yabulela bhuti ngonamkela.
Yeah, uyaqala uzethembisa.
Ngiqala ukuze. Kwesithathu.
Wesithathu?
Yeah, nabantu abahlala la.
Oh. So masithembisa vele feel at home, ne?
Yeah.
All right. So feel kanjani namhlanje useTexini?
I'm excited. I'm excited about the podcast and to be hosted by you. Sure.
Siyabonga. Welcome once more. Ubani Ntsaphokazi?
Ntsaphokazi uzalwa Eastern Cape, family of Madyibi. Ndingumama, I'm a mom. I'm a South African citizen. I'm an author. Dizindo zonke that I can think of. Yeah.
Okay. But before uba umama, Ntsaphokazi ukuba umntwana. Akekho umuntu ozala umama, akekho umuntu ozala ubaba yabo. So just take us through your upbringing. Ntsaphokazi umncane okhulayo emakhaya or nithini ngesixhosa elalini yabo or elokishini noma kuphi la khulele khona. Just take us through your upbringing.
So I was born and bred in the Eastern Cape. And then I was born into a family of 4. So me and my mom, my dad, and my brother, 2 brothers. And I grew up as any normal child. Of course, I had my own dreams, my ambitions. Initially, I wanted to be a pilot, but that dream, of course, didn't come true.
Okay.
Yeah, so
we inspire like I believe I can fly.
Maybe, yeah. But it feels like even now I'm flying,
sure,
but in a different platform or different vehicle.
Wow, good to hear that.
Yeah. So Gafunda, I went to study in Cape Town after matric. So I grew up in East London, and then I went to Mthatha when my mom passed on. And then Gafunda, after matric, I went to study in Cape Town. UWC, and then I left Cape Town in 2018 moved this side. And I think in Johannesburg, it is a city of gold, not only in terms of the money, but in terms of dreams, realizing dreams, seeing people that are ambitious and so on. So, yeah, I'm a mom, I've got 2 kids. Yeah.
Okay. So kupolitiki ungena kanjani sis?
Yeah, what a journey. So my journey into politics started in 2019. I think there's a lot that is happening in the world, but it came as a result of evaluating the unemployment state, right, and looking at why do we have so much unemployment. And I remember the people that I met, so it was just shortly I had moved to Johannesburg. It started in a lecture hall. One of my professors, who was my lecturer at the time, made a suggestion when I was telling him about my ambitions and what difference I wanted to make. So since 2019, the seed was planted to say, how can I be involved? Because unemployment is a political issue, and how you come with solutions, needs to be a political platform. So from 2019 until then, it was a rat race to say, how do I get involved in politics? Last year, actually, 2024, I was part of Rise Mzansi as a public candidate. And I think that's where I really tested the waters of what is currently happening in the political space. And yeah, I'm here now, and I feel I've been called into service in the political space.
Okay.
Yeah, so it really came from that idea of how do we solve for unemployment. And it was a rat race until now to say, I'm called to serve in the political sphere.
So did you manage to solve the unemployment?
So we haven't. We are starting out. So we founded an organization that's called Vuka Politics. And part of what we want to do, we want to upgrade the political system in South Africa. So, and by upgrading, we mean coming up with new mindsets, new ideas, new visions into the political space. So, yeah.
Okay. Before singena kuvuka politics, asiqale ku-Rise Mzansi. Yini Rise Mzansi?
So, Rise Mzansi is a political organization that was formed in 2023. They contested elections last year. So, we were invited to be part of the public candidates to serve in the different spheres of government. So, I then applied and I was part of the candidates for last year. But the contracts that we had ended after the elections. So then you were at liberty to actually go out and do your own thing. So that's where I then had this idea that instead of trying to fit into the current political system, perhaps it's time to actually try to establish a new political system. And I've got things that I feel the current political system is not addressing, and that's what we are hoping to build the organization on.
Well, sisakhuluma ngepolitics. What is genocide? Because ngiyabona like since we trend itori zabo Trump and stuff, everyone is talking about genocide. So umuntu obukele ekhaya understand the term or the word genocide. Asicela explain what is genocide.
So genocide is the intentional killing of people with the intention of erasing that particular, that particular race, or that particular tribe, or So, but it goes with you must have an intention that you want to do away with, with that particular tribe or that particular race. Yeah.
So, do you think currently South Africa are we going through such?
I don't think it's a genocide. We're not going through a genocide, but also if we're looking at the crime, we've got a crime problem. I think that's the essence of what's happening in South Africa. The crime that we have is affecting each and every person. It doesn't matter if you are poor, you are rich, you are white, you are black, you are orange, you are Indian, you are subjected to, at some point, know of someone who is impacted by crime or be impacted by crime. So it's definitely not genocide that we are experiencing.
Yeah, a crime.
Yes, it's crime.
So how do we solve that problem, a crime? Because if it keeps growing daily.
Look, the crime, it's not only about tightening policing or even coming up with the legislature to deal with crime. What we need to do is to focus on the economics of the crime. Yeah. Because even if you look at who is committing crime, where are they coming from, it's an economic it's an economic thing. It's become it's having an economic cost.
Yeah.
That's what crime is actually doing.
Okay.
So I actually wrote an article about that, economic transformation as a crime prevention strategy. And I think before we point fingers and so on, we need to look at where the crime is happening and how do we get people, particularly young people, because these people are supposed to be in a productive workplace, they're supposed to be at school, they're supposed to be in productive sectors of economy. And the failure to have them be productive, of course, they're going to loiter around and they're going to find other creative ways of, doing things.
Yeah. So do you think about abantu base South Africa, they're involved in crime because of indlala?
I do think that majority of people are experiencing that. I mean, you look at the unemployment states, and also you look at why some people are committing crime. It's stealing food items, as we also saw in the July 2021 riots. People were stealing mostly food items. So I think it does have that impact. But others are just chancers, opportunists, that see an opportunity and then decide to pursue it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sisakhuluma ngale subject genocide. Our president just had a meeting with Donald Trump.
Yes.
So what is your take on that?
I think it was brave of our president to go to the US, particularly from the perspective of trade and so on. I think it was brave of him considering how Donald Trump treats his guests, right? So I applaud him for going out there and actually trying to, rekindle the relationship that we have with the US. Because if you look at the relationships, there's about 600 companies, US-based companies that are operating in South Africa. So if they were to say we are pulling out, then what happens to those people? So I think when we're looking at the geopolitics, we don't look at geopolitics in an emotional way, but we have to look at it in terms of long-term and what it is that we are benefiting from the relationships. Yeah, so I think it was brave of him to actually go. And one of the things that I also learned from him was you need to know who's your opponent.
Okay.
Because if he had said something to throw Trump off, he would have been embarrassed. And it was so sad for me to see South Africans actually vouching that Trump must embarrass our president, because the embarrassment would have been South African.
So I believe that's self-hate.
Yes, exactly that. Okay. You might not agree with someone, right? And more especially because of how we view our politicians. So we've got this thing of we wish bad things could happen to them because it makes us feel better, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
But I think...
In fact, I believe it makes us to feel fulfilled.
Yeah. Yes. But it shouldn't be like that. We need to be patriotic to our country. And also realizing that politicians are human beings. They're going to make mistakes, and which is part of why I'm in politics. It's to humanize politics.
Yeah.
Right?
But after watching the meeting, Donald Trump and President Cyril Ramaphosa, well, give us your analysis.
As I said, I think what we were shown on the media, I think it went well. And part of what I observed as well is that you need to have allies. Okay. So I know a lot of people, they are against the fact that Rupert was there and the two golfers.
Sure.
But you need to have allies, right, when you are dealing with someone like that. Because President Cyril Ramaphosa has been saying there is no genocide in South Africa, but that other leader is failing to hear him. So what did he do? He brought the people that he trusted. Actually, those were Trump's guests, but because they are South Africans, they were able to then speak.
Even not just guests, they were also in evidence.
Yes, they were also evident.
Sure.
So I think it was a good strategy to allow them to speak to him, because then he would be able to hear, because it's coming from people that probably he respects. He even alluded to the fact that Cyril Ramaphosa is a respected man in other spaces, but not so much in others, which means he might fit in that, not others, right? Yeah. So I think for me it was a good meeting from a diplomatic point of view, because yes, you might be like, I don't care about this, but in diplomatic relations, there is a way of dealing with people, particularly with people that can have a negative impact in your country.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I believe also the race also played a role, understand, because of it brought the people of the opposite race and yibo labantu labo bathi thina siyaba-oppress emzansi siyabaxosha sifuna ukubabulala and stuff. So that's the reason ngithi bekuyi-proof.
Yes. And President even said that, that if there was genocide, the minister would not have said there. But for me, I drew those lessons that you need to have allies, you need to know your opponent, because going there just to prove a point that I can speak back to Trump, I can match the energy, right? Sometimes it's not good, even for your own people. I'm not saying let's suck up.
Let's be bullied.
Yes, let's be bullied. I'm not saying that, but in diplomatic relations, there's a lot at stake, and I think that's where leadership then comes in. Right? That's where leadership comes in, because as a leader, you need to have a cool head.
Sure.
And I think President does it, even though sometimes you would wish that he would take decisive actions, but he's a cool head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but we don't know what happened behind doors. We don't know what deals were signed behind doors. But I honestly think the discussion went better than we expected.
For the fact that he managed to keep peace in our country.
Yes.
Big up to him. Shout out to our president.
Yeah, shout out to our president.
Sure. Okay, asikhulume ngevuka politics.
Yes. So Vuka politics come as a result of feeling that the entire political system is not working for South Africans. Yeah. Right? And our argument or our belief is that there's three things that are happening, right, that make the political environment very ripe. The first one is the end of liberation politics. Yeah. Right? And the end of liberation politics is that you are fighting a particular enemy, which in the case of liberations, it's a white man. Yeah. Right? And then the second thing is that the liberation movements, they are failing to capture the imagination of young people, right? And then the third one is that at the back of this liberation politics is the Freedom Charter. And I don't know how many of us in the room know about the Freedom Charter, but the current politics in South Africa are at the back of the Freedom Charter. So the Freedom Charter is a document that was adopted in 1955 in Cape Town as a vision for the future of South Africa. So the context of it was that Black people were stripped of their rights. They couldn't vote for the majority. Their land was taken. So they were basically treated subhuman. And so the people gathered, led by the ANC, to say, let us have a vision of the future. So that's what the Freedom Charter is about. And part of that and what we're fighting mostly for was that the people should govern, right? And I think we got that in 1994. But where the Freedom Charter failed or has its limitation is in addressing the current issues that we have. So the ANC, you would go to their website, you read under their policies, they write the Freedom Charter, right? So the Freedom Charter, I feel it's a document that has lived or is outdated. And what we are calling on is that we need an upgraded political system or an upgraded governance system. It cannot be based on white people are still our enemies and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's at the back of that. But one of the three things that I've observed that sort of confirm the idea that Vuka is the future of politics. The first one is the generational leadership transition. So the people that were close to the Freedom Charter, that had adopted it and that were supposed to run with it, there is a leadership sort of vacuum. Those people are slowly fading away because most of them are in their 70s, 80s. And then the second thing is the constituency changes. So the voting or the voter in South Africa is different. They are looking for different outcomes from the political process. And that's why we saw last year that more than 11 million people didn't go out to vote, because maybe the messages are not speaking on how do you address the current issues that I have. And then the last one is the paradigm shift. So, when we speak about politics, we all don't want to be in politics because of how politics are. But I think we need to shift our mindset to say what can be achieved when we have good politics, when we've got good politicians. And what is it about politics that makes countries thrive, right? So we need to change our mindset about politics. An example is that, I was working in corporate was a professional, and you get respected when you're working in corporate or you are a businessman and so on.
True.
Yes, but the moment you say you're moving to politics, and this is something that I've experienced. So when you tell people
You're
that
talking
you
from experience.
yes, when you tell
Sure.
people that you are in politics, immediately they look down on you, like almost like, oh, you are one of them.
It's
the
KB.
stealers,
Yeah.
yes, you know, oh, you're one of
listen.
them, yes, you want to steal and so on. But I think that's a wrong way of looking at people that are putting themselves on the line to say we want to serve our country,
Sure.
because that's what politics is about.
Yeah.
It's about serving. But then it depends whose interest are you serving. It can be your own interest. We've seen politicians that are in politics for their own self-interests or for their handlers' interests. But I think this moment in South Africa calls for a different or a new leadership caliber with new solutions, who are not scared to say we want to disrupt the system. Because I think for me, that's what I want to do. My friends and my colleagues are thinking about disrupting business. I'm thinking about how do we disrupt politics to ensure that they work for us.
Yeah.
So that's what Vuka politics is about. So what we stand for a new social contract. We believe that in order to move forward, we need to go back and sit as the young people and say, what are our hopes, aspirations, and dreams, right? Because we still have a future in South Africa. And part of our messaging is that we need to reclaim our future. We need to reclaim it because it's stolen away from us through crime, unemployment, lack of education, corruption, and so on. So we need to reclaim it and say, how do we build, the future?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the paradigm shift, and getting people that are interested to say, I want to be of service to my country. Yeah. So I think that's what Vuka is about. Yeah.
According to my understanding, the word paradigm shift, it means quick change.
Yeah.
So what exactly are we changing? Are we changing our mindset? Are we changing the way we look at the politicians and the way we look at politics? Or are we changing the way we do things?
We need to change all of that.
Okay.
We need to change our mindset about politics. As I said, there's a different way that people receive you when you say you are in politics versus when you say I'm an entrepreneur or when you say I'm a businessman.
Yeah.
So there is a certain box that you get put in,
Sure.
and it's not a good box, right? People frown upon people who want to be politics because of the political culture.
So that paradigm shift must not only happen in us as people that are not in politics.
Yes.
It must also happen to the politicians.
So we need to change the entire paradigm shift, and I think the mindset that is currently there is that we need to be fighting someone. There should be someone that we are vilifying. But now the what do you call it, the cowardice, there's a word that they use, comes because these politicians, they go and sit with these white people that they are telling you that this is your enemy. So imagine a country where instead of pointing at other people as enemies, you actually deal with these systemic issues. Okay. So the paradigm shift should not only be happening to us, but it also needs to happen to the political leaders, to ask themselves, how do I want to serve my people?
So are the pastors and politicians the same? Because of now, pastors, they call themselves the servants. And you also call yourself the servants.
Yes. So I think that's the call of leadership.
Okay.
Leadership is about
leadership is a calling. Yeah, yes. That's the reason they say leaders are born.
Yes. So it's you of being service. And I think the culture that we have globally, it's not only a South African thing. We are people that are driven by self-interest. So you don't care how your actions are gonna affect the next person. And I think that's where, again, leadership, self-introspection then comes in, to ask yourself, what is your legacy? Because I think also we are all here to leave our legacies. You can either be remembered as a great leader, someone who did something to improve people's lives, or you can be remembered in another way. So I think in that, spectrum of leadership, there are also opportunists who are going to do things for their own self-interest. But again, as I said, I think this moment in our political space, it calls for a different mindset, a paradigm shift. It calls for different solutions. We still caught up in the 20th century ideas, hoping to solve 21st century problems. Okay. It's not going to happen. There has to be a break with the past, and I'm not saying just ignore the past. Of course, history is always there for us to learn, but there's still a future that we need to get to. And
Sure.
we cannot be distracted
Sure.
by the present that is happening. We need to use the present as an
Yeah.
opportunity for the future.
True. We need to stay relevant.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
you. I feel you. Well, I know you've covered most of the points, but let's go back. Let's talk about the political culture in SA.
Yes.
Like currently, where are we now?
The political culture is, as I said, it's not nice. So when I analyze the political culture in South Africa, it stems from the Freedom Charter. So the Freedom Charter had about 10 ideals that they wanted to achieve, and part of that. So the ANC has been the dominant party. The Freedom Charter belongs to them, and now you've seen ANC offsprings, that have left, taking pieces and parts of the Freedom Charter. For example, the land and land expropriation, the nationalization. Those are all aspirations of the Freedom Charter. But what the political parties are doing in the political space, they are replicating the model of the ANC, hoping to do it better than the ANC. And I don't think that it's possible that I can take your idea and go and implement it the best way possible. So it's almost like we've got all of these political parties.
But remember, you're a product of environment.
You are a
Understand?
product of
Yeah,
environment.
like the way abazali bakho futhi bakhulise ngakhona, now uzofuna ukuphila kanjani?
Absolutely.
Sure.
But that's where this reimagination then needs to come in. Because we cannot copy and take the ANC ideals hoping that we're going to make them
Sure,
better.
sure, true.
And that's where this systemic issue that I speak about, that we need to disrupt the system, because the system is entrenched on the Freedom Charter, that no, this is the Messiah. And I understand that parts of the Freedom Charter were taken to make up the Constitution, right? And even though some of them, they are in the Constitution, even the Constitution, they call it a living document. So it doesn't mean we can't go and amend the Constitution to fit the current times, right?
Sure.
So we need to then disrupt that thinking that there is someone somewhere who's sitting as an enemy, right? And I always also say, in 1994, yes, we might have gotten political power, but there was no transformation that took place outside of getting black managers into positions in corporates. But real transformation happens when you are able to build organizations that can compete, in the economy. And what we see, the economy is still predominantly white. And what we are vouching for is that we need to support entrepreneurship in order for us to build these businesses that can absorb the majority of the people that are, that are looking for work. Instead of chanting and feeling like we deserve the piece of the pie. Why not build a new pie?
But remember, basically, land, sakimikuku, like in this thing, is accessible as abotaki, sasmosh. So, do you think if we can, take over everything, this country won't be a disaster? Because of now, even yesterday, I was watching DJ Spoo on one of his episodes, my podcast work. They are talking about the new job act versus the old job act. Yo, more difference, because there's this group on Facebook, I forgot the name, where they will show you the new job act versus the old job act. The old job act used to be very clean. Like you look at the places like Hebrew, we I can't believe what you the Hebrew behlala ama-celebrity manje seyidume ngama-drugs.
Yes. And I'm glad that you asked that question, because part of what I always tell my team and my friends is that we need to be honest about how destructive we are, especially about the things that we didn't build. Right? We need to be honest about how destructive we are about the things that we didn't build. And I think it's easy to say you want all of these things, but can you manage the little that you have, right? So I think for me, it's really bringing back that ownership, because when you own something, you want to take care of it, right? So even with the businesses, with the what do you call it? The sporting facilities that we're gonna build.
Sure.
People need to feel I own this. So if I'm not taking care of
Bona
it,
nje amaparki manje bhemela kwamahabi and stuff yabo.
Yeah.
So I was a save purpose.
But it's also that thing of we deserve things and we are not supposed to be working for them, right? We deserve to be given positions, CEO positions in companies because
that's
of
why I'm business owners are siyawawisa. Yeah, because we are not ready to manage.
Yes, and it starts there, you know, taking care of the things that you believe in, right? So I do think that as Black people, and this is not a conversation that someone must come and tell us about. It has to come from us to say, let us be honest about our behaviors to things. Let us be honest about how disruptive we can be even to our own future.
I think your point is paradigm shift young again.
Yes, you know, so we need those honest conversations, not in a militant or malicious way, but for building and for collaborating, you know, and for organizing for a better future. Because if South Africa doesn't work, I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I get worried about the South Africa that my kids are going to inherit. And I think that's part of why I decided to be active in politics, because I cannot leave the future of my kids on someone else's, you know, on someone else's hand if I can be involved. So I was like, if I'm called to serve in politics, then why not? Because at the end of the day, 20 years from now, I'm going to look back and be like, had I acted when that edge came in, then maybe things would have. And I'm not saying I've got all the answers. I don't have all the answers.
True.
If anything, I've got questions.
But you can change the world.
Yes,
and it begins with you.
Yes, I've got questions, and we are creating a platform of like-minded people that are going to come and say, I've got these questions. How do we come up with solutions to some of these pressing matters? Yeah,
well, usari is a little point there. Somebody once said, "Uti, umntwana se next door, uzobheminya upe, yabo. Instead of helping as a neighbor, uthi hayi akusumntana mangizingeni abazibona. Wait until umntana lo a jump fence azogcekezela wena. Understand? Then you can realize manje ukuthi the problem bese next door nami yang affect.
Yeah, it's becoming your problem.
Yeah, so manje wena like I solution oyilethaya awumeli ukuthi leyo nto le is affect wena. Ibona iseza
kuwe. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think, you know, part of what makes me sad, especially about the Black community. So I grew up in Lokshini, and then I also went to the rural.
Okay.
And the times that we grew up, the problems of next door neighbor were your problems. If they were not eating, it was your problem.
Sure.
And you would share whatever little you have.
Sure.
And I think we have adopted, you know, this notion of my life, my kids, and I don't care about anything else that happens outside.
And that is not our culture.
And that's not our culture. That's not how we were raised. You know, it's trying to fit again into the system that was never designed for you, right? And I think we need to then go back, you know, to that. And we see it in our leaders. I always say, any society is a reflection of their leaders.
Okay.
Right? Any society's leaders, there's a quote that say, nations, they rise or fall at the back of leadership.
That's right? Powerful, yeah, true.
Nations, they rise or fall at the back of leadership. True. So you ask yourself, what is happening in South Africa?
Because one wrong decision from a leader, it affects us all.
Look at corruption. Have you seen how corruption, and I'm not saying corruption was not there, it was there. But the fact that we've got leaders who are implicated in corruption, with corruption charges, they still go on to be given positions.
Sure.
Then why
South Africa legal legalized crime.
Yes.
Yeah, well, like for instance, we all know which amaphoyisa or traffic cop afuna i-drink. Understand? We all know ukuthi umuntu angeka pass i-driver's license bangakhiphanga uncane yabo. So abasayifihli. They're not even hiding it. So they call it a legalized crime.
It's becoming a norm. So when people and even young kids, so I'm a mom, any behavior that I do in front of my kids, they're gonna think that's right. It's the same with leaders in society.
Sure, that's why umntana umfana ubabakhe makakhula asha umama akhe phambi kwakhe naye uzokhula asha umfazi wakhe.
Exactly. Okay. So that's the reality of behaviors as human beings. What you see being done, you would think that's okay. So if my leader is implicated on corruption charges and they don't get any they don't get penalized for that, of course I'm going to think, why not? You know, and then you breed this culture of corruption that you need to bribe people, you need to pay, you need to do all of these things, which you know they are morally wrong. But because they are being done, it's forming a culture.
bese kuba nentanga yami sine-RDP because of
Yes,
ithengile.
connection.
Yeah, ithengile basho straight abaningi abakufihleli bazokutshela ukuthi ayabhayiswa yabo so kumele ukhiphe okuncane nje uzongena
Then
phakathi.
uzonge- so it's a bad culture. So the same way that bad cultures is made by bad actors, I do believe that political culture and a political system can change when good people get
Okay.
into that space.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's why I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about your book.
Okay.
What is the name of your book and what inspired you to write that book?
So the name of the book is called Journeying Through Entrepreneurship, and cultivating a mindset for entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So I wrote the book in 2022.
Cooperate.
Yes, I was still working in corporate at the time.
Okay,
Yes, and really the inspiration for the book was that when I got to Joburg in 2018, everyone was an entrepreneur that you meet.
Yeah.
You know, and if you say you're working in corporate, you know, you get a certain phase, especially in these business networking sessions.
Sure.
And at the time, there was this notion that you cannot be taught entrepreneurship, right? So I went to school, and we had entrepreneurship as a module.
Okay.
And now it contradicts what I've heard, that you cannot be taught entrepreneurship. And I looked forward to learning about entrepreneurship. And interestingly, how my lecture sort of packaged what entrepreneurship is was that it's a problem-solving mechanism, right? And I remember in the entrepreneurship module, I used to get so energized because I saw entrepreneurship as this vehicle that can help us to solve many of these issues that we have. And if you look at entrepreneurship as a problem-solving mechanism, it's not only about money. And as someone who has studied the scholarly literature and so on, there's no way that it mentions that you are an entrepreneur when you make profits. It's about creation value. They speak about value. And if value can come across when you are starting a non-profit organization that feeds young kids, that's a value, even though you might not derive any economic benefits from it.
Sure.
So I wrote the book for people like myself who felt I want to do something meaningful, but I don't know how to start. So that's what the book is about. It's about journeying through entrepreneurship and cultivating this mindset of solving problems. Because that's what, in essence, entrepreneurship is about. It's about you seeing problems and solving them. An example, so I'm coming into the political space and I've identified a problem that we've got systemic issues. I'm wearing my entrepreneurship cap to say, how do we then solve for this particular problem? And I think if we were to be such people in South Africa, instead of sitting and complaining about, oh, I'm waiting for the government to come and pick up my litter, but you gather as a community and say, how do we deal with this problem?
Okay.
Right? And you start up a cooperative that will deal with that. And then the government can come and empower, that sort of things. So also when I look at South Africa in the next 10, 20 years, we need to be a society of people that create industries, people that create goods and services without reliance on anyone else.
Okay.
Right? So I think that's the change also in paradigm. Instead of sitting and feeling like we are victims of what was done to us, but maybe it's time now that we actually stand up, and say, we want to be part of the change. We want to be counted. We want to be active in our future.
Sure.
Yeah.
Asikhuluma ngamapothole agcwele eMzansi. Like yeah, I was worried, like driver airport yabo. Ngithi a tourist maqeda ungena ecountryn nje into oqala ibona ipothole.
Yeah.
Understand? Because ngibona ipothole like phakathi airport. Then also like every time when I drive around Sandton, I see potholes. Understand? Then I ask myself, if kunama potholes eSandton, then thina lokishini asikho safe. Imagine, ama-rates abo compared to ours, but still now they're experiencing the same problem. So, silungisa kanjani leyo nkinga? Remember when we all about solutions?
Yes. No, it goes back to this thing of not being custodians. That was the word I was looking for. Being custodians of what you are given.
Sure.
Right? Taking care of them. If you look at the majority of the roads in South Africa, they were made during apartheid time, even though we don't like referencing that time. But I think with the infrastructure was working. But now you see that people that are even left to take care of these issues, they are not doing it because there are there's no penalty for you not doing your job.
Okay.
right? It's the same thing when you go to Home Affairs and you wait for 3 hours to get service because people are prioritizing going on tea and so on and so forth. So I think the culture that we have, is very detrimental to our development. Because why must we have potholes? There's money that's allocated to infrastructure.
Sure.
But somewhere, someone is not doing what they're supposed to do, and then it trickles down on everyone. So that culture of urgency, it's something that we can develop. But again, you need decisive leadership for that.
Okay. Yeah. So don't you think this thing of sharing power is also affecting us?
It is affecting us because everyone keeps pointing fingers, But it also happened even under the ANC when they had majority rule, And what fascinates me about our politicians is that they don't find each other to say, how do we work together despite our differences to make South Africa work for the ordinary South African. It's about them and what we have done and so on. So you're putting your party before the needs of the people that you say you are representing. So I think there is that, there is no collaboration in terms of looking at what is best for the South African. It's all about me and the accolades. We saw it with the VAT hike as well. Everyone was claiming the victory that the VAT hike has been scrapped out, instead of coming together and agreeing on something. I mean, you're sitting together in these meetings, but you can't agree on one thing that is affecting the poor of the poorest. So for me, it speaks to this thing of wanting to be, the most popular or the most effective, but also you are effective in doing nothing. Because at the end of the day, we still have potholes, we still have all of these things, crimes and so on and so forth. So I think there isn't that collaboration and even putting South Africans at the center to say what is best for these people.
Sure.
And how do we ensure that we deliver on the promise.
Well, I believe, according to me, we don't take pride in our own. Like, for instance, like Mangapega Manje, here we are having a South African flag. Even on the table, we're having a book with the South African flag, understand? Look at your earrings, understand? Shout out to that. And abantu baseKasi banalento leyo ukuthi mina ngiyethembisa eKasi lamakasi, understand? Ngiyayithanda lento leyo kakhulu, yabo. Because of umuntu kusho ukuthi uproud ngeKasi lakhe, yabo. So uyalithanda iKasi lakhe, but still ama actions, they say action speaks louder than words. If umuntu uzothi mina ngiyethembisa eKasi lamakasi ngithatha iphepha lahlele phansi lelo kasi lelo, understand? So manje sekune contradiction between lento ayikhulumayo nalento ayenza, yabo. Like, for instance, I know like kunamachita abhayi kunokwenza ukuthi mina I don't watch PSL, yabo. Mina like I'm only watching European football, yabo. Kunabanye abantu they like mina I would never listen to local hip hop. Mina I would only listen to international artists and stuff. It's good, not to say ukuthi asibancane or abekho good, but like we need to love our own and we need to support our own first, yabo, ukuze sizokwazi ukuthi sibakhulise. Like if isithanda izinto zethu, then automatically i-country izolunga, according to me, yabo, because of into moyithanda uzoyinakelela.
Yes. So part of the values of Vuka is that heritage and culture.
Okay.
And that's what we are trying to also bring, that pride, because you cannot be proud in things that you feel don't belong to you.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
And I think one of the things that we are seeing is this thing of classism, because you are seeing better when you watch European versus local things.
But we are seeing better makhuluma isingam than ukukhuluma isikasi.
Yes.
Sure.
But also I think that can be attributed to what colonialism, apartheid did to us. They
Sure,
stripped
most
us.
definitely,
Yes,
yeah.
they stripped us off.
That's brainwashing after all.
Yes.
Sure.
And I think the next generation, of even leaders, we need to have that. For example, if you're working in corporate, you hardly wear your traditional clothing unless it's the 24th of September.
Only
right?
once a year.
Only once a year. Recently, we had celebrated Africa Day, but it's
So
not.
yesterday?
It's not. Yes.
Yeah.
Today is Monday.
Today is Tuesday. It's Africa
It was
Day.
on Sunday, 25th.
Yeah, but they're celebrating
yesterday.
Yeah, 26th.
Yes. So even that, but we don't have a holiday for that. A day that's meant to celebrate us. So I think slowly but surely we need to get back to that. Even at school, I've got this idea. Even we need to teach at school the different cultures that exist in South Africa, because that can then build the tolerance that we need to live in a society that is acceptable of different people that think differently, different opinions, different belief systems, and so on and so forth. So I do think that there is a contradiction, because there's a classicist that's happening. We are classing each other, that if you do this, then it means you are of a lower class than I am. And I think that's really sad to witness. It's really sad to witness. And also the issue of not taking care of your environment, that should be your personal responsibility. And that's why I'm saying a lot of people are waiting on the government to come and clean it up after themselves. Right? Whereas you are supposed to clean up after yourself and keep your environment clean.
Sure.
Those are some of the things that we
not
don't,
basics.
Yes, the basics. So yeah, we really need to go back to being proud of who we are, and not allowing foreign forces to come and tell you this is who you are, this is what you're supposed to believe, and so on and so forth.
Okay, can we challenge our educational system? You said you're a parent.
Yes.
I believe education system is wrong, because of, according to me, after ngibone abazali abaningi bafela ku parenting, I believe parenting was supposed to be taught in school. That is my own belief. What is your take on that?
Yeah, so look, the education system has failed in many ways. Let me start here. One of the things that make me say the education system has failed in many ways, you've got people that are leaving matric that are going to sit at home if you are not admitted in any university or TVET college or whatever the case may be.
That is even better, because it's not graduates actually.
Yes, but what is the goal of an education system? It's supposed to create or to graduate people that can go out and be productive in the economy, or in the society, or wherever the case may be.
That's why kudala bebathi uyofundela umsebenzi.
Yes.
Mayevasithi or mayethisha bebathi sekaqedile isikolo manje sekayofundela umsebenzi. So ufundela kanjani umsebenzi maqeda uhlale ekhaya?
So the education system here too needs to be reformed, and we need to reform it aggressively, right? Because when you leave the education system, you don't have any skills other than reading and writing. Right? You don't have anything else that can make you be a productive member of society. And that's why we've got so many young kids that are sitting at home. If you miss and I always say people fall through the cracks of the education system. Once you are out at grade 12, you don't go to university. Chances are you forever sit there, unless you try your best to say. And I also don't believe in this thing that no, but you must work harder. We need to create an environment where the place that you were born doesn't affect the opportunities that are presented to you. So a child that's born in the rural Mthatha should have the same opportunities as a child that's born in Sandton. On the issue of teaching parenting, I do think that it can be incorporated, but how do you teach children how to be parents, right? I do think the value system...
social science.
Okay.
Yeah.
but at that age, at the age of 16, you are being taught how to take care of a child. I don't know if it should be something that fits in the education system.
But we teach them about sex.
We do.
So what are the results of sex?
But look at when you're teaching someone about sex, and I'm not sure if that curriculum was approved. But when you're teaching them, it's
currently since junior exam preparation for life science.
Okay.
Yeah, we do talk about sex.
So that is a preventative measure, right? But when it comes to families, I would think that aligns more with the social, what do you call it? Like the social organizations, your churches, NPOs, and so on and so forth, right?
Okay.
But when it comes to the education system, I do think that our education system needs to be reformed.
Amended.
Yeah, it needs to be reformed aggressively. You need to sit down and design the curriculum from grade 1 until grade 3. What are kids supposed to be learning?
Okay.
From grade 4 until grade 6 or grade 9, what are kids supposed to be learning?
Okay.
And from grade 10 until 12, what are they supposed to be learning?
I think, don't you think we need to introduce more technical schools?
I do think so.
Because Mama check, like, abantu ababhaya abantu abasithungela icathulo they are from Mozambique abantu abasilungisela imoto they are from Mozambique because of ngale banama-technical school so uthola ukuthi umuntu ono grade 10 uyakwazi ukulungisa icathulo omunye uyakwazi ukulungisa imoto omunye uyakwazi ukulungisa icathulo omunye uyakwazi ukulungisa ama-radio and stuff different things
I think there's a great room. That's why I'm saying when we graduated grade 12 most kids don't have the skill. And if you look back in the apartheid days, they used to teach some of those things, right? How to sew, how to cook, and so on and so forth. But we're no longer doing that because we associated that sort of thing as labor, hard labor on kids, right? So I do think that we need to have more technical colleges. There are technical colleges, but the technicality of the technical colleges I'm not so sure about. But I do think we need to really be aggressive and invest in education.
But mangikhuluma ngama technical school angikhulumi ngama college kuphela ngikhuluma nge-high school. Like for instance the Rosefield is a technical school, understand? So uqala ukuyifunda lento le kwa grade 8.
Yes.
You don't have to ukuthi uye graduate uye matriculate ukuthi uzazi izinto lezo.
Yes. No, we of course there is room for ezo, as you are saying that even the fashion industry in South Africa, most people that are assuming they are not from South Africa. So it's a market that
majority we need.
Yes, it's a market that we still need to work on. But then again, when you look at and for me, when I look at it from a systemic point of view, the education sector needs to address the needs of the industry. Right? So the needs of the industry. So I often hear that there is a disjoint between what people are graduating on versus what the market needs, which is the organization. So we need to find a way of how do we get those things talking to each other so that we can be able to draft the curriculum that is required. Sure.
Yeah. Well, ukhulume ngamasonto, ukhulume ukuthi this is a social issue. So, according to you, spiritual, what time is it? Are we living in the last days as the book of as the book of Revelation has predicted?
We've been living in the last days. I mean, our parents used to say that you are living in the last days. I think the times are getting weirder and weirder. And the good book, which is the Bible, and I know a lot of people don't want the Bible, but it does allude to some of the things that we are seeing. You know. But does that mean now we fold our arms and not do anything about it? We need to do something about it so that even when the horn, you know that you are ready. What do I think about religion, spirituality? I do think that we need to have something that we believe in. I think as individuals, you need to have something that you believe in. And also for me, when I look at there must be something that you believe in, and that thing can be, and we've seen the rise of how, you know, people are doing things that were frowned upon many years ago, 10 or 20 years ago, right? And it shows you that there is, in spirituality or in religion, there are people who are working for the good side and there are people who are working on the bad side. And you see with the results or the fruits that we are bearing where we are. And I think the fact that we don't have something that we are holding on to as a nation, that's the detriment of us. Yeah, so we must have something to believe in. And I think also when it comes to religion, do I think we need to bring only Christianity? I think we need to have, you know, a spectrum because different people believe in different things. And South Africa being diverse, we need to accommodate that so that it also breeds tolerance. Because when I know where you are coming from, what you believe in, I'm much better to respect you. But it seems now that we don't respect each other. When you say you believe in African spirituality or in spirituality, I look down on you as if you are doing something that's wrong. But if I know and understand what it is, you know, that you sort of believe in, then we are able to co-create and coexist. All right.
So how do we get hold of you? If you're taking what they are, give us your social handles.
So it's Ntsaphokazi. On all platforms, you should be able to find me when you are looking for that.
Please spell it for us.
So it's Ntsapho, and my surname is Madyibi.
Is there anything that you want to add from everything that we discussed?
So I want to add the issue of a generational mission. We hear a lot of people speaking about a generational mission, And perhaps this is a question I'm going to even leave with your audience and to you.
Sure.
So if freedom was an idea for the liberation politics led by the ANC, what is our big idea now? What is it, that idea? And we hear people speaking about uniting black people, but what are we uniting behind? What is that big idea that can propel us to actually rally together towards a common vision or towards a common goal?
Unfortunately, I believe it's human nature, because if we can go back to the Bible, the children of Israel, they were longing for promised land. As soon as we promised land, bakhohlwa everything. Like, I believe abasinayo any inspiration. I'm sure that is slowly freedom. So much is not freedom. Asazi manje ukuthi enye into esilwelayo.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave that question with your audience as well. What is our big idea? And I think that's what will be our generational mission. I'm going to answer this question as we build Vuka. It's going to come up on us building the organization, because the organization that we are building, it's not only for black people. It's a South African organization. It's a South African organization that is bringing a vision.
So we are still
for
building
the future. So building it is me engaging with you. It's me going out to communities and actually engaging, because we want to build it ground up.
Okay,
right? We want to build it ground up. We don't want to come to you and tell you this is your problem, this is how we're going to solve it, right? We want to provide an opportunity for people to come together and actually engage us. And we are planning on having a convention towards late this year.
Okay. So you get the information so you tell on your social handle.
Yes.
We
also have a social handle for Vuka, Vuka Politics, on across the platforms as well.
That's lovely.
So
Well, ngiyazushinga a question, but in closing, any message to our subscribers, abantu baserenkeni, the Quantum podcast, the Quantum subscribers?
So Vukani, guys, that's my message. Vukani, and we need
now.
Yes, Vukani, guys, and reclaim your future. Let's reclaim our future. South Africa belongs to us, and it's up to us to chart a new vision of how we want the country to be in the next 10, 20, or even 30 years. But we cannot do it without you. So we want you guys to wake up from this political apathy that I don't like politics, I don't want to get involved. You need to wake up and let us build South Africa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for honoring the invitation. Siyabonga nesikhathi sakho ukuhlala nathi.
Yabulela now. Yabulela now.
Well, bafethu sesifike ekugcineni manje selopaka iquantum. Bafethu, asivaye ecishe kwaze kwaphela negazo. Wow, what a long journey. But anyway, it was very productive. So that's it from me, your boy Kim Snatch. All I can say is bafethu, eitaona. Awe.